Well, in 2004, a democratic uprising called the, quote, Orange Revolution swept through the nation of Ukraine. And this week, Ukrainians took another big step of independence by joining the World Trade Organization. Dale Hurd reports on the transformation of this former Soviet republic.
Ukraine relaunched its experiment in democracy in December. After months of political stalemate, a special election gave the supporters of democracy a narrow victory in parliament. President Viktor Yushchenko and newly appointed Prime Minister Yulia Tymoshenko, the heroes of the Orange Revolution, control the government. With pro-democracy forces in charge, this vital part of the old Soviet Union aims to join the West, the European Union, perhaps even NATO. Yushchenko has already asked NATO to let Ukraine start the membership process in April. That's something Russian President Vladimir Putin wants to prevent. If Ukraine becomes a bastion for Western-style democracy, Russia's hopes to regain superpower status could suffer a fatal setback. Ukraine analyst Ariel Cohen.
Without Ukraine, it won't be able to rebuild its empire, if ever it will try. Control of Ukraine, domination of Ukraine, is very important for Moscow.
Putin has tried to control Ukraine through powerful politicians and businessmen sympathetic to Russia. But the 2004 Orange Revolution struck a blow against Russian domination and old-style hardball politics. And what brought about that monumental moment in history? President Yushchenko says a Kiev church played a crucial role. In the summer of 2004, the Embassy of God, led by Nigerian-born pastor Sunday Adelaja, successfully protested the government's confiscation of their church property, paving the way for the political revolution that shook Ukraine just 6 months later.
It is somewhat ironic that a pastor from Nigeria would shake up the politics in the Ukraine. But he's here with us. It's a pleasure to welcome the pastor from the Ukraine, Sunday Adelaja. So glad to see you, Pastor. God bless you. Tell me what happened in this thing. The Orange Revolution was under the thumb of the Soviet, the Russians. They tried to block it in every way. And what role did you play? How did you get involved in it?
Well, all the churches in Ukraine have actually been praying for years for God to set the country free from all the influences of communism and Russia. But our church, because we're the largest evangelical church in the country, and because of the situation with persecution and trying to deport me and get us out of the building that we were in. And so we just took to the street. I took 20,000 people with me. But this is something that is unprecedented in the Ukraine, because the last people who did got shot. And this is Russian-backed government. And everybody was afraid that they were going to shoot us as well. But we had 20,000 people. That is more than the number of police in the country.
Oh, I see. So they're afraid they couldn't shoot you all.
They couldn't shoot us all. And well, when I got to the school, I spoke to the government representatives, and because God has shown me a vision that this act is going to lead to a national rebirth. And I told them, if you are not going to take responsibility for the redemption of this country, I, a black man that you call a nigger and a monkey, I'm going to take responsibility for the redemption of Ukraine. And that quotation became one of the 10 quotations that the Ukrainian media said changed the whole history of the country. 6 months later, after we took 20,000 people out and there was no consequences, the whole country came out, including 10,000 people from our church, to protest the result of the election. But I'm still paying the price for that action, because Putin and KGB in Russia, they are adamant that we are the people responsible for that revolution. And because of that, they deported me from Russia, canceled my visa. They just arrested the bishop of our ministry last month in Russia, closed down our Bible school there, and they just deported my pastor from Russia, from Moscow, last week.
Well, now the Ukrainian government, though, has been friendly to you. They've opened their arms.
Yes. The government of Ukraine, Viktor Yushchenko is a very good friend of our church. He wrote me a letter of thanks after the Orange Revolution, because apart from bringing out the people to protest, we also housed from 1,000 to 2,000 people from in the cold. We took them to our church. We fed the people in the square. We provided security, medical services. So the president expressed his gratitude that because of people like you, if not because of someone like you in the Ukraine, we would not be having democracy and the freedom we have today.
Putin is doing everything he can to turn the thumb screws on the Ukraine. The question of gas, Gazprom is their big gas monopoly, and that supplies the natural gas to the Ukraine. What is he doing in relation to that?
Well, I'm very happy that we have a new prime minister now, Yulia Tymoshenko, and she's adamant that she's not going to be dependent on Russian gas or oil anymore. So she's trying to build some more reliable coalition with Norway and some other countries like Azerbaijan and other countries that will make us to be able to bypass Russia.
What do you think about the Ukraine? We are seeing, of course, we've got a major presence in Kiev here at CBN. Is there real revival going on in the country, spiritual revival?
Well, you know, just in our church alone, in the last 10 years, we've had over 2 million people walk with their feet to our central church in Kiev. That is just in Kiev. We still have 400 other churches in the Ukraine. This is just Kiev. These are the people who filled out the papers of, you know, getting born again. Now, not all of them are in the church today, but we don't need all of them to be in our church. Some of them are back in the Orthodox Church or Catholic Church. But anybody that has been touched by the power of God to give his life will never remain the same. And other churches have experienced the same kind of growth. And just in our church, we have members who come to church every week. We have over 100,000 members just in the Ukraine. But the influence of the revival in the Ukraine is greater than the numbers, because everybody is saying our church has 5 million. The government and the KGB say we have 5 million, but we only have 100,000. Now, why do they say that? It's because we believe and preach in our church that we must invade the 7 spheres of influence, which is the social and spiritual sphere of life, the political sphere of life, education, media, the social, the entertainment and art, culture. We must invade education and sports and entertainment. So all these things. So because our people are everywhere in the parliament, we have members. The chairman of the Supreme Court of the country gave his life in our church. The mayor of Kiev gave his life in our church. Even Prime Minister Tymoshenko gave her life in our church. So because of this influence of Christians being everywhere, people think the Protestants are taking
millions. Well, here again, you're a black man. You're from Africa. This makes no sense.
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
Only God could do this. You know, for the first 4 years in Russia and in Ukraine, I couldn't get one European saved. 4 years.
Yeah.
Until God revealed to me that the problem is not just in the prejudice of the people, but the problem is also with me, because I was doing advertisement, trying to get people to come to church. And the Lord spoke to me very clearly. He said, if you want to touch this country, leave the pulpit. You cannot touch the people just by talking to them. People are not interested in listening to you. Go to the down and out, the drug addicts, the alcoholics, the bumps in the street, because those people, they don't care for the color anymore. They are dying. They only care for the touch of love. If you go to care for them, to love them, and if I could trust you with those down and out, in times to come, I will be able to trust you with the elite, with the powerful of the land as well. And that's what has happened. The first year, when I began to feed the people, cut their ears, change their clothes, we had we had 7 people just by then. But in 1 year, we moved from 7 to 1,000 people, because their families began to come and say, what did you do to my son? What did you do to my husband? We've tried to cure him and to heal him all these years. Nothing worked. Well, that kind of changed my concept, that we would not be able to change a nation just in the 4 walls of the church. We must make the Christian faith practical. So today, we are feeding 2,000 people every day. We give them 3 square meals, 3,000 people every day.
And they see the love of Jesus. Well, listen, it's a thrill seeing you. I am so excited about what's happening in the Ukraine, and I'm just glad that we can work together to see that country won for Jesus. It's marvelous. Sunday, Adelaja. Is that come from Elijah in the Bible by any chance? Is that name, or that's something, huh?
It sounds similar, but Adelaja actually means a reconciler.
Reconciler.
Yes, sir.
What a nice name. Well, God bless you. And his book is called Church Shift. Sunday Adelaja, and where can you get this?
It's actually coming out in the U.S. tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow, okay.
On the 8th of February.
All right.
So anybody who goes to Amazon.com or churchship.org will be able to order the book for themselves.
Well, you get that from Amazon. Church Shift. What a marvelous, marvelous testimony of the power of God. Well, Christy, there's more coming.